All right, everybody. Today's will be real quick. We had internet outages yesterday, so could not do one. So hopefully today's will work a little better. When we last stopped, Muhammad had set the precedent of forgiving the people of Mecca for the assassination plot against him and for rejecting the message of Allah. Muhammad will accept the people of Mecca who wish to convert into the Ummah. Remember, the UMMA, or the Ummah, is the larger Islamic community. Once you become a Muslim, you willingly become part of the Ummah. Now, this is a powerful precedent as it sets the tone for peaceful conversion, as others will follow this example as Islam will explode and spread across parts of Asia, Africa, and Europe. It'll just grow like quantum leaps. And one of the factors that makes the spread of Islam so fast was the ease of practicing the religion. Judaism has the Torah and the Ten Commandments, the specific rules that God set forth. And then Christianity's got the Ten Commandments plus the precedents or the teachings of Jesus, like the Sermon on the Mount. And as Christianity is built upon the foundation of Judaism, Islam will be that third layer. Remember, we talked about in the religion philosophy unit, you can add to them, you can modify them, but the roots will always stay in the original framework. Muslims believe in the same prophets as the Old and the New Testament: Moses, Abraham, even Jesus, who they see as another prophet like Muhammad. And while these teachings and some of the rituals in Judaism were complex, and added on to that is, the Gentiles and Christianity, in Islam, the daily practicing of the religion is somewhat easier and straightforward in a sense. And so these practices are still known as the 5 pillars of Islam. They are things that every Muslim, from whatever sect or branch you follow, must do these daily or when they are applicable. So number 1 is the profession of faith. Every Muslim must ask forgiveness before worshiping. That simply means, Allah, you have seen me. I am so sorry for doing this, and this. You ask forgiveness and you make the profession of faith that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. You must do this before even reading or reciting the Quran. Pillar number 2 is simply praying 5 times a day. Muslims must pray 5 times a day in the direction of Mecca. When Muhammad was alive, you prayed in the direction of Jerusalem because this was the holy city at the time. So in predominant Islamic countries, when the call to prayer goes out, as you can see, wherever you are, you stop, you get out your prayer rug, and you begin to pray. Now we go towards Mecca. It is where the Kaaba and the holy shrine is, and it's the city of the Prophet. Pillar number 3 is that all Muslims who are able to should make a tithe. A lot of religions do this. If you go to church or mosque or synagogue, a tithe is a donation of money. Usually it's around 10%. To help the unfortunate, especially the poor, the orphans, and the widows. We can once again see how Muhammad's early life is enwrapped in the pillars. And number 4, is fasting. Every Muslim participates in what is known as Ramadan. Ramadan, otherwise known as ritual fasting. The comparison I draw is to Christian Lent, but it is Christian Lent on a deeper, more intense level. In Christian Lent, you deny yourself something for 40 days leading up to Easter Sunday, something you enjoy to make your life a little bit harder. Well, Muslims do it a little differently. During the 40 days that Muhammad was in the desert, they symbolically don't eat any food or drink any liquid in daylight hours for 40 days. It is a period of prayer and reflection. This is what Muhammad did before he had his vision from Gabriel. And it moves throughout the year. So when we get back, ask me an example that I personally had with Ramadan, and I'll show you how intense it is. So, and number 5, last but not least, is known as the Hajj. The Hajj, or the pilgrimage to Mecca, is something that every Muslim who is able to should travel to Mecca and take part in the Hajj, symbolically doing Muhammad's journey back, so to speak, once in your life if you are physically and financially able. This is Muhammad returning triumphantly to Mecca from Medina. Pilgrims will march 3 times around the Kaaba, this large black rock housed inside of here, the site where they believe the Old Testament's Abraham was going to sacrifice his son Isaac to prove his faith. The journey attracts millions of people every year. There's a lot of logistics and planning from the royal government of Saudi Arabia to mosques throughout the world. It's a very, very intense process. Under the leadership of Muhammad, accepting authority or the leadership of Islam will bring tolerance and acceptance. Jews and Christians who accepted Muhammad's authority were left alone. However, they could not proselytize or seek to convert others, and they had to pay a small head tax that all non-Muslims had to pay. Now, this is an important practice, especially for what Muhammad called the people of the book or people of Scripture, Hebrews and Christians, because Muhammad studied with them. In 632, Muhammad will ascend into heaven. If you're you're Muslim, he ascended into heaven. If you're not a Muslim, you believe that he died and was buried, as a normal individual would. But for Muslims, Muhammad ascends into heaven in 632. Now, Muhammad had no son, and as such did not designate a successor before he ascended. So here's where Islam faces its first big challenge. What do we do without Muhammad? Muhammad was the guy that Gabriel spoke to. Allah chose Muhammad. Well, now what do we do without him? And this new super tribe, or Ummah, has trouble immediately. 2 sides begin to argue. One group from Medina said the true leader of Islam should be from Medina because we listen to Muhammad. And Mecca says, oh, no. The true leader of Islam must come from Mecca because we're the city of the prophet. Yeah, but you kicked him out and he had to fight you. And each side believed that one of its own members should be in charge. The other problem is what we talked about before we got out for all the snow was the Bedouin tradition of allegiances. Remember, this only lasted while the 2 parties who made it were still alive. Now that Muhammad is not there, your allegiance can go back to your own family tribe. Many people who swore allegiance to Allah renounced it because Muhammad was gone. Eventually, that will all be changed when we will get a Caliph, a political and a religious leader. And the first guy to replace Muhammad is a guy named Abu Bakr, Abubakr. And he was eventually elected as the leader of Islam. He was Muhammad's uncle and the oldest known convert. So he will be chosen as the Caliph, Muhammad's successor. And he was able to establish leadership over the early followers of Medina and was successful in getting the other tribes converted to Islam to accept being part of the Ummah. Once you give your word to Allah, you can't break it. It does not end. It was eternal, so you could not revoke your word. All right, we'll talk about Shia or Shiite, Sunnis and Sufis when we get back. We will also talk about Islamic expansion and reasons for success. We're going to try and blast our way through this at warp speed to try and get this over for Friday so we can have a test next week before break. It'll be tough, but I think we can do it. All right, guys. Out.